Hello everyone, this is your Cessna 172 instrument track ride. I suggest that you go back into the flight simulator and pass your first solo and your private pilot track ride before attempting to follow this tutorial. With that said, let's go.
You and the examiner are about 5,000 feet somewhere over the shady acres airstrip. The autopilot quickly settles the plane on a heading of 066 degrees at about 100 knots, and the examiner began her opening remarks.
Hello, I'm your examiner for today's instrument rating check ride.
You might hear these remarks from a real examiner on a real check ride.
I will expect you to fly in a professional manner. I'll expect you to tune your own radios, maintain all altitudes and other assignments I might give you. I want you to tune the NAV1 radio to the Seattle VOR 116.8.
Now you have 30 seconds to set the radio to the correct frequency. With your mouse, just click until you see 116.80. Switch it over, and she'll say this.
Your clearance is direct to the Fsx intersection. Then
Now you
clear
have
to
another
the
30
VOR
seconds to set your NAT1 OBS to 338 degrees. So set the needle with your mouse at about 340 degrees. The OBS tolerance for the VOR approach is 338 plus of minus 3 degrees.
I'm disabling the autopilot now.
As soon as she stops talking, just re-engage the autopilot and your altitude, but do not engage the heading because she changed your heading already. The aircraft will start turning. Next, set the throttle to 2400 RPM and stabilize your airspeed at about 100 knots. Any setting from 335 to 341 is acceptable. In fact, as soon as the examiner sees that the OBS is set within these tolerances, she will set it herself to exactly 338 degrees. You have 2 minutes to get on the proper radial on a heading of 338 degrees, plus or minus 10 degrees. And now you have to go find facts. Do you remember that chart from the briefing? I'll suggest that you print it and keep it handy, just like in real life. That way you can see where you're going and what you're doing, because it's very hard to remember all these numbers just by heart. Fact is one of 3 intersections that sit very close together, about 17 nautical miles south of the airport. Fact is part of the VOR approach to run with 34 right. The other 2 are NEO, used in the ILS approach to 34 right, and LORI, used in the ILS approach to 34 left. Right now everything is very simple. You just maintain or stay at your 066 degree heading until you see the needle moving, and you just have to intercept the needle or capture the needle to get into the facts intersection. So synchronize your turn with the CDI so that you roll out on 338 degrees at the same time that is centered. Here is where things are starting to become interesting. So you have to be at the DME 17.0 on a heading of 338 degrees with the CDI center and maintain 5,000 feet and 100 knots. There you are now, you are settled, going towards the first intersection. Now all you have to do is keep an eye on your instruments and maintain your assigned altitude, airspeed, and heading. Now, how do you know when you get to facts? Your instruments will tell you. The course deviation indicator will be center and the DME will show 17.0 nautical miles. From where you are at the start of the flight, facts is ahead of you and to the left, and getting there is going to be a 2-step process. You're going to get on the proper VOR radio, and then you're going to fly towards the VOR until you are at DME 17.0. For this section of the check ride, you have some freedom of movement, but you must hold 5,000 feet and 100 knots. But you can fly almost any heading necessary to get to the facts intersection. You have 5 minutes to reach facts from the time you set the OBS to 338 degrees. Don't begin your descent until your DME shows 17.0. And even then, wait a little bit longer until it reads about 16.9 or 16.8. We are at facts 17.0. Now let it go down to 16.9 and 16.8. Now reduce throttle to about 2000 RPM and go down to your autopilot panel and set an altitude of 3000 feet and a descent rate of 800 feet per minute. From now on, until you reach the DME distance of 11 nautical miles, the altitude tolerance checking is turned off. Just make sure that you are at 3000 feet when you reach the DME 11.0. And remember, your airspeed is still active, so you have to maintain 100 knots on the descent. Alright, so just do whatever you need to do to settle down on the tolerance that they are giving you. And let me just fast forward a little, that way you won't fall asleep watching this video. Now we're getting closer to our distance on the DME of 11.0 to get to the next intersection, which is melt. So here you must hold your altitude for at least 3 seconds. It's just going to check that you are at 3000 feet. So you need a little bit more time for her to check your altitude. So just maintain your altitude for 3 seconds and then start to descend to reach the NDB. At the NDB, which is about 4.3 DME, your altitude must be between 1550 feet and 1700 feet when your DME reaches 4.3 nautical miles. Now from the DME, which is 4.3, just wait until it reaches 4.2 and start your final descent to an altitude of about 840 feet. Here comes the NDB at 4.3. Reduce your throttle again and start descending to 840 feet with a descent rate of about 800 feet per minute. Now you have 5 minutes to get from the NDB to within 1 nautical miles of the VOR. At that point, the examiner will stop holding you to the OBS heading. So hold everything, maintain your heading, and just wait for the examiner to say something. But don't stop flying. Always assume that you're going to pass the next section. So just maintain all your instruments, attitudes, and speeds until she says something. When the flag flips, your altitude must be between 790 and 940 feet, and it must stay there long enough for the examiner to see it, so about 3 seconds. And you're done. Now you have to wait for the the examiner to say, go around, execute the publish, misapproach, or her favorite phrase, sorry, you have to take this check ride again.
Go around. Execute the published missed approach.
Okay, congratulations, you passed your VOR approach. Now you can do 2 things, go have a beer or just keep flying. So I'm just going to keep flying.